Rob, I have been wearing a headset for like 6 hours a day. And I'm here to tell you it's okay. The experience is all right. I'm not.
I think the dumb thing is I'm supposed to ask you which head strap are you using?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I find them both good and bad for different reasons. I mean, the knit one is not the disaster that a lot of people think it is. And the one with the two straps, the dual strap, I guess they call it. It's not as comfortable. It's more fiddly, but you can dial in a more precise fit is I guess what I would say. So it's all right. I mean, those things are all right. I'm right now, I am participating. I'm choosing not to participate in the hype, by which I mean that I do think that this thing is really cool and I've really enjoyed using aspects of it. But I think that there's a lot of overblown hype about it too. And I'm trying to be like putting my reviewer's hat on and, and be reasonable about it, which is like, it has a ton of potential, but it's also super buggy. Like the OS is super buggy and a lot of the apps are super buggy. And I don't blame developers for that because most of the developers whose apps I'm using never got to use the actual hardware. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, maybe they will at some point. They'll get a lab or they'll buy a Vision Pro or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it's great for entertainment. I've already seen the first inklings of the you can't do real work in a Vision Pro debate starting online, which also, maybe I'll wade into that one because I think you can. But it is, it's been fun. I'll tell you what it's really good with. It's a fantastic Mac accessory, which I didn't expect. I mean, it's the most expensive Mac accessory ever because more than a lot of good Macs cost, but there's something nice to be able to, you can literally just sit down and stretch out your screen as big as you want. And have this giant screen that you're working on. Because what it does is it's emulating a 27-inch 5K display that is then mirrored at 4K. So what you're seeing is 4K, not 5K. But then you can stretch it out and whatever. And it looks good. And then you can do your little, your Vision OS apps on the side or wherever. And those kind of act in a way as widgets. So in a lot of ways, it's like the ultimate Mac experience, I think.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, to what you said, the media, watching movies and stuff, that's the only thing that really interests me.
I know, I've done very little of it.
But I feel like that would be the only thing that would interest me. But then we've been doing this podcast, 8 years?
Yeah.
You know full well I'm not using an iPad.
Right.
I don't really like using my phone that much.
Right.
The Vision Pro just feels like it falls into that category for me. It's like, yeah, it's a nice product for other people, but for me, it's not going to do anything.
I think for a lot of people, I do. One of the things that I wonder is what becomes the iPad after this, because in a way, I mean, putting aside the price, which is obviously an enormous difference between the iPad and the Vision Pro, I could see this filling the role of an iPad for a lot of people. Because it's both a consumption device, but it is a better productivity device than the iPad, I think. Just because of the ability to use multiple windows and all that kind of stuff in a non-cramped environment. I mean, you can use multiple windows on an iPad too, but you're pretty limited. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still kind of forming my thoughts. I've had it for 4 days, and yesterday was probably my biggest day of being in it. Yesterday was the first day I really did work in it. I actually was writing in it. And yeah, I was writing in it, and because what's nice is I can like emulate my Mac desktop, and then whatever app I'm reviewing, I can have it open right next to it and be using it at the same time. I mean, not unlike what I would do with an iPhone or an iPad app, to be honest, but but that's just a handy way to do that. And so it's been pretty great. I mean, we shall see. I mean, I don't think it's going to be taking off gangbusters just because it's so expensive, but there's a lot of potential with it. It's funny because about the entertainment side is that immersive video didn't work for me when I first tried it at all. I was like, thought I was losing my mind. I'm watching these immersive videos, and all that would show up is like the PG rating in the corner, and then the voices would start, but I wouldn't see any video, and I had to reboot to get that to work. And occasionally the environments go from being an environment to being just like a fog, really. Like being in the middle of a cloud. There's just like a lot of little things that are tough about it. And taking screenshots, I will say, I thought this is going to kill me, because the first review I did, I spent as long on the screenshots as I did writing the review, because it's just really fiddly, because you got to do it. If you want to get crisp screenshots that aren't fully evaded rendered or whatever, where they're when you take it with the unit itself, it's sharp wherever you're looking and fuzzy everywhere else. And if you hook it up through Xcode, you can get a fully sharp image edge to edge, which is really nice, but it's also very fiddly and tends to disconnect and not get your screenshots the way you want them, and you're having to kind of go back and forth between a virtual Mac environment and the actual app that you're recording, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but I've kind of gotten that process down. Plus now I have the developer strap, which is kind of an odd name, but I've got the developer strap, which takes some of the flakiness away, because it's not doing it over a wireless network anymore.
The world's most expensive dongle.
It is. It's a $300 dongle, and part of that's because it replaces the entire arm on one side, and those arms house the speakers, which are essentially AirPods Pro, I think. And I mean, $300. One AirPod Pro doesn't exactly explain that, but it's also probably a very low volume product too. So I'm not too surprised that it's expensive, but just given the amount of time it took me to do the screenshots for the first couple of reviews, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it for me. I don't think it's worth it for the average person, because you're not going to get much out of this. I mean, it's really designed to collect data from, in the instruments panels in Xcode, and to take screenshots and videos and that kind of thing. It's not, I tested it and it didn't work with like an Ethernet dongle attached to it or anything like that. So it's not like it's not the answer to gaming on the Vision Pro.
No, definitely
you can't get your fast speeds that way. You got to do them the old fashioned way with Wi-Fi.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've done our, what I would say is our compulsory Vision Pro bit.
Yeah. So that's what we call first impressions with John.
There we go. What did I have in the show notes? I'm giving a talk this month.
Nice. What about?
About how my website works and how I'm like collecting kind of everything I do online and getting that into my website. So it's more of it's a technical talk about how I'm doing those things, sort of 10-15 minutes. But I will put the link in the show notes if anyone's interested.
Nice. Is that going to be around where you live or somewhere else or what?
So it's an online talk. So it's 10 a.m. Central Time. Okay. I guess. Right. I guess that's what that means. So about 4 p.m. my time. But yeah, we'll put a link in, and you can add it to your calendar, or there's an RSS feed, that kind of thing. Yeah, so you can get notified if you're interested.
It's the 11T meetup, right? And 11T is the blogging system you're using, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'm really interested in those things like 11T, and there's a bunch of others that are springing up that I think are making it very easy for people to blog again, which is nice. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't had the occasion to use any of these systems myself, but I always find them really interesting, because I think a lot of cool approaches that make it kind of more plug and play for some people. A lot of media, little technical know-how, but you can get by with without it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a handful in a list in Obsidian right now, but off the top of my head, there's a Pika page.
Yep, I was looking at
There's
that.
a new one that
I looked at that.
which has just launched this week, I think.
Oh yeah, that was like a day or two ago. I was going to say I looked at it. That looks really nice.
Yeah, and then there's Scribbles. There's a new one as well, which is that's in testing, right? It's sort of invite only at the moment, but I think that's going public next month. And I mean, those two on their own, those are like very like you sign up, you just start writing,
right?
You've got theming options and that kind of thing,
right?
Just to make the experience much nicer for people to just sign up and just get on with it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good to take that barrier down, because that is getting started is the hardest part. I mean, really the hardest part is getting started writing, and to have a technical barrier in front of even the barrier of thinking of something to write makes it even harder for people.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll get those in the show notes as well, so people can check those out.
Yeah, Pika was one that I looked at and I was like, oh, I'm going to save this link for later, because it seemed like one that would be worth recommending to people if they were interested in starting a website. So, Rob, I want to talk to you about posting disease and paywalls today.
I saw you put this in the show notes, and I don't know what I don't know what that combination of words means in this context.
I know. So this comes from the two most recent podcast episodes that I listened to. And one thing that I am trying to do more of, this is not like a New Year's resolution or anything, I've been actually doing it for a while, is broadening my tech horizons and listening to a lot of people outside of kind of the tight Apple sphere that often, Mac stories, people like me move in. And so I started listening to a new podcast called Never Post. Very new podcast, only 2 episodes. And it's really like an internet culture type of podcast that has a bunch of segments about all kinds of topics for people who are extremely online, which I guess we count as. And
yeah.
And this segment in this show was called Never Post, and it was about posting disease, which is, as they defined it, the two people having the conversation defined it as kind of people who get addicted to the attention, whether it's positive or negative, and just can't stop. And that was, so there was that. And it was a very interesting conversation about kind of like the motivations, how it's like, this is not like a political thing. There's like people that do this on the left, on the right, in the center, in this community, in that community. And what is it that causes it, and why is it a problem? And then the other thing that I was listening to was an interview with Casey Newton, who runs Platformer, which is a newsletter subscription that he left The Verge, and he's hired one of The Verge's former writers, and they are writing mostly about social media and those kind of big tech platforms and the intersection with like democracy and government around the world and that sort of thing. Very interesting and very good subscription if anybody's interested. But he was interviewed on Decoder, which is one of the Verge podcasts that Nilay Patel hosts. And they were talking about the media, and they were talking about how the media is kind of crumbling around us because it's having a hard time keeping itself funded. And they were, one of the things they talked about a lot was what Casey did, which was he went out on his own from an existing media publication, The Verge, and, it's just him and one or two other people now. And that's one avenue to potential success in the future as the media industry evolves. But, at least part of that service, I think that there's one free newsletter issue every week and at least a couple that are paid. And so, part of that is behind a paywall. And one of the conversations was about whether all the quality journalism is going behind a paywall and that there will be nothing left that'll be free except misinformation, conspiracies, and junk. Like AI generated junk, which I think is a legitimate concern. And that creates like this weird socioeconomic divide between people who are informed and people who are poorly informed that is now defined by whether you have the disposable income to afford good journalism or whatever. And what it made me think about, so those are both good conversations. So I highly recommend both those shows. I think people should listen to them. Decoder probably never posts as brand new, so hopefully it'll continue to be as good as the first 2 episodes I listened to. Decoder often interviews CEOs, and sometimes they're boring people, to be honest. And so I'm very pick and choose about that. I don't really care about a lot of the people that's talked about there, but they're always adjacent to the tech industry. So a lot of times it's interesting. But what it got me thinking about is 2 things I've seen online. One is the person who has a online business or some kind of creative endeavor that they're trying to achieve, but they get sidetracked by social media. In other words, they feel like they have to feed the algorithm, and what they end up doing is it cuts into what they're actually creating, because what they're doing instead is putting all of their creativity into posts, whether it's Twitter or Mastodon or Threads. It doesn't really matter which, it could be any service, and I've seen that where I've seen people who got off to a good start with like a blog or a YouTube channel or some sort of online business that's, like kind of an indie type business, 1, 2, 3 people. And they get caught up so much in the social media aspect of it that they just stop producing as much, and their business starts to wither. And at the other end of the spectrum, I've seen people who have just decided, to hell with the free internet, I'm putting everything behind a paywall. And that's like the last you hear of them, unless you're one of the people for whom you're willing to pay. And I feel like these are like opposite ends of the spectrum of the same thing, and that both of them are destructive in their own way. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a strange and weird problem that we've sort of found ourselves in. That.
Yeah, it's a weird tension, right? Because when you think about it, and I feel it all the time, because I'm like, well, I'm not going to put all my good ideas on Mastodon or Threads. I mean, I'll make an article out of it. And like one of the things we struggle with, I know at Mac Stories, is like we still have a free website, and it's really hard to maintain a free website and have a subscription service. But to me, it's like one of the most important things, because, if we went all the way behind a paywall, all we'd be doing is cutting off growth.
Yeah. And you're not going to get anybody new finding the site.
Right. There would be people, if we did that, there would be people who would continue to subscribe for years and years and years. And we would probably be fine for quite a while. But we would be writing our own death sentence in that sense. And I see people doing that now, because if you look at it like in a compartmentalized way, like if I looked at just Mac Stories, I'd be like, oh, this doesn't make much financial sense as a business, because it's got one sponsor a week, and, just not making like huge amounts of money by any stretch of the imagination. And it takes a lot of work to do all those articles and everything. But it's it's kind of like that classic funnel system where a lot of people, that's all they want, and that's totally good. And it brings a lot of people in, and all you need is like a small percentage of them to be willing to pay something more through a subscription service, which, but for the subscription service, I don't think Mac Stories wouldn't exist in the form it does today by any means. So, but it's that balance. It's like trying to live in that middle place where you're not like, and the thing on the other end of the spectrum, on the other end from the paywall, is the posting, and the posting has value. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't, because it's publicity and promotion and all that stuff if you've like got some sort of online business. But it is also awfully easy to get caught up in it, and then all this, because this is what happened. This is what people think happened with blogging, is that people stopped writing blogs because they were just posting all their thoughts on Twitter instead. And so I can see that end of the spectrum as well. And I've seen people who just pretty much put all their effort into their follower accounts and their and what they end up with is like a really big following on some social media service and a neglected website where they could actually make money. I don't know. I mean, have you seen any of that at all?
Yeah, I feel like I definitely feel that about when we were all still using Twitter. I mean, you could look at my website and look at the stats for blog posts, and you can see the cutoff. There's right at the start of the site, there's quite a few fairly regular posts.
Yep.
And then there's a good 4 or 5 year period where I maybe posted once or twice a year on my blog.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm also sitting on an archive of 50,000 tweets or something.
Right.
Right. And they're certainly not all blog posts.
No.
But they're not all
right. But they're probably good. Right. But there are probably also some ideas in there that are worth blog posts.
Right. Exactly. And I have done exactly that as well. If I'm in the archive looking for something and I see something, why didn't I write this as a blog post? Or
right.
So not that I'm necessarily looking to make money or funnel membership to my website, but it's a good example of we all got on Twitter and we were like, we'll just post on here. We don't need websites anymore. What do we need all that for?
Right, exactly. And I guess money is just a different layer of the same problem, because it is a problem that I think existed regardless of whether there's money involved or not. And I feel it with what we post on Mac Stories too. We're doing more link posting than we did for several years, and a lot of that is because there were times when Twitter was such a big deal that it didn't feel like there was any point to doing link posts anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like there is again, and part of that is, it's not that there aren't social media sites and services. I mean, there certainly is Threads and Mastodon and Blue Sky and others, but I think because it's kind of fragmented now, that a lot of people aren't going to see it if you just put it in one place. And
mm-hmm.
I think discovery, one thing Twitter was very good at was discovery. And so there was always the promise of reaching more people than you normally could. And that has kind of gone away because I think that the algorithm on Threads is pretty dampened when it comes to that. And it's virtually non-existent on Mastodon, and that I always think of it as I don't know, when you throw a rock in a pool, you get ripples, and that was what you would get on Twitter. But on Mastodon, you throw the rock into a sandbox, and it might make it makes a little sand splash to the sides, but it doesn't cause the ripples. And that seems like a John Gruber analogy.
Mm-hmm. I totally get what you mean. I think as well, certainly looking at what Twitter was like when we were using it, though, it was almost like there was a handful of posts or tweets or whatever links every day,
right,
that would just get retweeted and recycled through everybody for a 24-hour period. And then that would just start again. I feel like the range of things that I see now on Mastodon is so much better than what it was on Twitter.
For sure.
Because I think, I don't know what, back to what you were saying about, doing link posts and things like that. I think people are way more consciously going, no, do you know what? I've seen this cool thing. I'm not just going to boost it or retweet it, which can potentially just end up in the ether of nothing if people don't see it. And people are excited again to say, no, I found this cool thing. I'm going to actively share it and say, no, I really liked this thing. You should go see it.
Right. And I think it's been long enough now that this has been kind of a phenomenon that I think it has legs, really. I don't think it's gonna peter out. Maybe it'll slow down a little bit, but I think it's good. It's refreshing. I mean, I think it feels like, 2005 all over again. And it's kind of nice because people are being a little more, I don't know, as you said, you're seeing a wider range of things and people being a little more thoughtful about what's being posted online. So it's a little less sensationalistic and clickbaity in that sense when it comes to individuals. I mean, the clickbait will always be there. It'll just be driven by AI now. But
yeah.
But if we have this core of good bloggers around, it doesn't really matter if that stuff is out there floating around and all that you can find on Google anymore, as long as you can find your way to the blogs.
Yeah, definitely. I will say, speaking of Google, because I've been thinking about this, and this was to do with what we were talking about. Remember we mentioned Mango Baby?
Oh, right.
The baby tracking app.
Yep.
And I thought, why didn't I come across this before? And so I thought, let me see if it's even possible for me to find this on Google. Just generic sort of, best baby tracking apps, that kind of thing. The first 3 websites on Google were all a variation of bestbabytrackingapps.com. And there was like 3 of these websites. All 3 of them just had the exact same list of 10 that they'd clearly just scraped off the App Store or something.
Yeah.
I could not deliberately find Mango Baby, even when I knew what I was looking for, obviously without using the search terms. Because all I would hit is these ridiculous, and these websites have been around for ages, but I think AI is making it way worse now, because they're just rewriting descriptions, so it at least looks like it's a different website.
Yeah. No, I was recently researching an exercise bike, and boy, I found a place that the AI has found, which is, they're just doing these listicles that are pretty clearly AI written that don't really have any substance. They're just a way to create Amazon affiliate money by linking out to Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was the kind of thing. I was sort of writing notes as I did it, but there wasn't really anything more there other than Google's not very good at this right now. But I thought it was worth noting because we spoke about that a few weeks ago.
That is interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Arc can do. They seem to be trying to fix search a little bit with some of these features that were announced last week. I'm an Arc skeptic, I think, because I was turned off by the design. I know a lot of people really like the design. It just never really gelled with me, but I do think that the team over there is doing a lot of interesting things and has some interesting ideas. I wish they would do more with mobile. I mean, they're kind of doing it with this new search app. But they don't have. But the problem with the search app is, one, none of this stuff syncs with the Mac app, and two, there's no iPad app, and so to me that's like a real half loaf in terms of mobile. I mean, it what it does, and I think it was smart that they call it search, I suppose, because it really does in a lot of ways replace those kind of quick searches you do. I view it as kind of like the search engine for when you're at the pub and you have a question about who won the football match, or whatever. It's that kind of search where you're looking for quick facts, and it's very good at that. It's not a full-fledged browser yet, though. I hope they get there, though.
Yeah. Well, it's worth keeping an eye on. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's probably do it for this week.
Yeah, I think so. Very good conversation. Don't get posting disease, and go out and read some more. Go out and read some more blogs and listen to some different podcasts. That's my advice of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to subscribe to Never Post right now, and I'm going to listen in the morning.
Yeah, you should check it out. They're doing they're very new, and they're going to do some kind of they're doing free and subscriber based stuff with bonus material. The usual thing that podcasters do. And so far, it does have that kind of NPR-y feel. Like you get to the end, and there's 3 producers, 2 executive producers, and I always hear that. I'm like, that's me, or that's you.
Yeah, I could do that right now if you want. This podcast was produced by Robb Knight, edited by Robb Knight,
distributed by Robb Knight under rights from Robb Knight. Absolutely. Oh, anyway, but it's still, right. but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is good. So you should try it out.
Okay, I will do. All right, I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, bye.